you walk away from a legal career to get yourself into the fantasy writing domain. Do your characters know how lucky they are to have you?
Maybe unlucky. No, it was a big decision to do that. I was hating the job though. I think most of us linger in the grey, and I like to sort of explore that the most. It's the only reason we get off out of bed every morning.
So, Richie, hi, and welcome to the Whereabouts Tales podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you take the time. I have to start with this. You walk away from a legal career to get yourself into the fantasy writing domain.
Yeah, that's right.
Do your characters know how lucky they are to have you?
Maybe unlucky. No, it was a big decision to do that. I was hating the job though. I don't know if you've ever done this where you just hated the job, but you just carry on and you carry on, and there's other things that you want to be doing, and in the end, you just gave up trying to resist and just took the plunge and went for it.
What was the decision, the breaking point when you said, now I leave?
I think at the time there was a bunch of us gonna make our own law firm, and that fell through. So at that point, I was just like, oh, I can't be bothered anymore. I don't want to carry on working for these guys. So I was thinking it was only 23, 24. Thought, yeah, why not? I'm young, got no commitments. Give it a shot. Then I ran out of money after 6 months. So
Okay.
the dream died.
Have you started before quitting with writing? Did you already start experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved writing. I think that was probably the biggest motivation that when I was working as a lawyer, I completely fell in love with writing, and I just wanted to do that and nothing else. So when it was sort of down to making a choice between the two, it was quite an easy one. And I just thought, you know what, we're nothing to lose. I can always go back to this job, but I love writing, and if I can do something that's a bit closer to what I enjoy, then I might sort of be able to tolerate a day job. So yeah, I saved up some money, went for it. I studied really hard. I used that time to basically school myself on how to become a better writer, and I didn't I didn't get anywhere really. I wrote a lot of pretty rubbish stuff. But you've got to do that. You've just got to practice, learn, try things, fail, go back at it. And yeah, I don't regret it at all because I invested all that time in myself and something I love. And yeah, I never look back.
That's really nice. That's really nice. I think at the end, I think the decision is really important. It's a bold step for sure. For sure, it's a huge step because you are going out of safety, shitty, and being miserable, but safe, and you go into a world that a world that you don't know. Have you had something public before you quit, like something on the internet, something on, I don't know, blogs or something?
Yeah, I think I had one short story published, and I still remember getting that acceptance because you get so many rejections with short stories, and with it being your first one, it's like, oh, it's actually I could actually do this. It gives you belief. It's like someone actually likes it. And I still get that now when I get short stories accepted. Like, oh, I can't believe someone actually likes that.
But come on, you like them as well, so it's
Yeah,
clear
exactly.
that someone else would like them as well, right?
Yeah, unless, well, I'm a bit weird, so not many people like the things I like.
Everyone is weird in their own way, and I think the fact that we don't fit into the common rhetoric of the world doesn't make us weird. And what if the others are weird? I just
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I heard a nice saying today that if you if a bunch of apples are meeting a orange, they will not say, "Look, this is an orange." They will say it's an apple with a active coloring, because because you can never say like someone is different. It's hard to accept that someone is different than you, and you will
Yeah.
never tolerate that. And at the end, we don't. Come on, it's there's nothing
Have,
normal and nothing abnormal.
have you ever read the book The Outsider by Camus?
No.
It's a really, it's only, I think it's a novella, and it's basically looks at what you've just described, like seeing the world in a different way to everybody else. And this person saw what we would like probably agree with and empathize with, but everyone else around him thought he was weird and treated him like the outsider. So yeah, it's a brilliant book. Oh, if anyone hasn't listened to read it before, Albert
That
Camus.
I will. I mean, it's important. I think it's important lessons. The lesson that we are learning these days all around the world, because we are becoming less and less tolerant
Oh yeah,
with the
it's
other
crazy.
persons. And I think this is a lesson that everyone should learn, that we should accept everyone as they are, as long as they don't do anything to bother you, to offend you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about how you are and what you do. And we hate each other so much these days that it's getting critical and critical to learn how to love each other, how to accept each other as we are.
Yeah, that's really well said.
Did fantasy play a big role in your childhood, Richie?
It did, yeah. I think I was about 11 years old when the Lord of the Rings movies came out. So that just
Okay.
blew me away.
Absolutely understandable.
Yeah, and then it was also around a quite a young age when Harry Potter was out on the silver screen for the first time, and then I love reading books as well. I've read all the Harry Potter books. I read The Hobbit. There was a lot of other like fantasy, sort of younger adult fantasies like Artemis Fowl. Um, Always sort of tends to involve grand adventures, underdog characters, and it doesn't have shape the kind of stuff that you like. I don't know if you found the same, like the stuff when you liked when you were a kid has really heavily inspired what you do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Was someone in your family also attracted to fantasy, or is something that you are the only one?
Not really. No, I was a bit of a an escapist child. Like I didn't really. I like to just go off and do my own thing and explore my own world and like live out my own stories. Like my father was a footballer. But I never kicked a football till I was like
This
11.
is this is crazy, and especially
Yeah.
we just discussed before starting recording. We have to say that I asked you where you said you are coming from Liverpool, and being from Liverpool and you never kicked a football. That's so interesting.
Yeah, especially because my dad was a professional footballer. And I'm one of them kids that, or one of them people generally know, if all, if the flock goes one way, I'm gonna go the other way. So everyone loved football, like everyone loved Liverpool FC, like everyone loves the Beatles.
Yes,
So it took me, I didn't get into listen to the Beatles till I was like 25. Which is like they're from where I'm from, and I really love and appreciate them now. But because everyone growing up was like, "Oh, the Beatles this, the Beatles that," I was just like, "Nah, I'll listen to my own thing."
but I think also it's hard to appreciate Beatles when you're under 25. I have to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's a kind of music that you don't are not really able to appreciate when you're young.
Yeah.
But there is a can which for which team did your dad played?
So he played for Everton for a little bit, which is the other
Oh,
team in Liverpool. But he played most of his career at Coventry, which is a team just by
Coventry Country.
Birmingham. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they used to be good. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, he played in the top divisions and stuff, which is pretty really cool. And it's good to like every now and then you see the odd video clip from the 1980s.
How was it? How was it grow up being the kid of someone famous?
Well, mild fame in it, really. Like, I have
I
never
mean,
really experienced it. There's sometimes
okay.
when you go to like events when I was a bit younger, people come up and ask for autographs, but it's a bit weird when you're a kid. You don't really understand what's going on. Because I suppose you've never really been in that position to idolize someone
Mm-hmm.
enough to go mad and get autographs and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah, I never really thought too much about it. But one thing was quite interesting is because we did have to move around quite a lot, playing for different teams.
Correct.
And I'm always someone who like sort of studies like the room when I walk into it kind of thing. And I was interested. I was speaking to a former FBI special agent who's a
Okay.
who's a like an expert in body language.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed him for my podcast, and he said um, children who move around a lot when they're younger tend to be more perceptive because they have to be more alert, more aware of the new surroundings. So they're more observant. They looking for threats and dangers, basically.
To identify danger. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Makes a
and
lot of sense.
he said this was like something he realized because he was originally from Cuba, and they had to leave Cuba and move to America, and he couldn't speak English. He could only speak Spanish. So a lot of the way that he would learn and communicate with people would be looking around, seeing how they respond and how they say things. I just think it's really interesting because if you can get that sort of nuance in writing and stories, it just brings everything to life in a whole different way.
The awareness, like the awareness of the characters at the end, also in your story.
Mm,
That's really interesting.
yeah.
What was the reaction of your family when you told them, you know what, I will quit my day job and do this for a living?
Yeah, I think a few people were a bit questionable, but always been quite lucky that the main people around me have been quite supportive and just go along with the mad things that I come up with. Yeah, but yeah,
Because I mean, it's hard for someone to understand that they don't have this passion why you are doing this, and I think that's if you have people around you that are supporting you, I think that's amazing.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
What's your biggest influence that you have in from literature? What do you think? Where do you think you get your influence?
I really love obviously fantasy stories, but I'm not someone who is big on the sort of almost like cartoony fantasy. So it's like the hero's always going to win. Um, like almost like I don't know, maybe like sort of cliched Dungeons and Dragons stuff from like the
Mm-hmm.
80s and 90s that a lot of people grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
which thankfully now is we've moved on a lot from that in the genre. And the kind of stuff that I like to write is more aligned to Game of Thrones. So quite character driven, focusing on like real world issues, but just putting it in a fantasy setting. I think that really makes it interesting. And people can engage and relate a lot with issues that are a step away from reality as well, I think. And just writing sort of real people, gritty, um, the shades between light and dark. I think most of us linger in the grey, and I like to sort of explore that the most.
I think the combination that you have between the the gritty realism and the high fantasy, it's impressive, and I
Oh,
think the
thanks.
um was that in from start on your voice, or did it evolve somehow?
Yeah, to be honest, high fantasy, I love it. But when it comes to writing it, I'm not a big, massive fan of like dragons and magic and stuff like that. Like some people really love to sit down and work out how a magic system
Yeah, Game of
operates.
Thrones destroy all the writing.
I know, and like, fair enough if you want to do that, but that bores me. And if it bores me, it's going to bore the reader. So I like magic. I think magic should be mysterious because if it's too set out, it becomes less like magic and more like a science. And I like the mystery. It should be
Makes
my
sense. I never
yeah,
thought about this, but really makes sense. Like
yeah.
if you leave the reader to get some own ideas inside, I think it makes it more interesting.
Mm. Someone said, like, as an example, like Star Wars, like the first Star Wars films were all about the Force and it was quite mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the second generation, they started trying to define what the Force was.
And it was not interesting anymore.
Oh,
I mean, it was interesting because they had better special effects, but that was it.
yeah. Padres.
I have to be honest. I stopped watching Star Wars after the third episode. All the sequels and prequels,
I have just
they have
finished.
no
I have just finished Andor, and I have
end.
to say, Andor is fantastic, and
It's really good.
Rogue One is a fantastic film as well. They're the two things I would basically. It's all the same story, so it starts with Andor. So watch Andor, then Rogue One,
Okay.
and then 4, 5, and 6, and then don't watch anything else.
That's too late. I watched one, two, three as well after four, five, and six.
Yeah,
That makes it not so good.
I
I
didn't watch
like though
7,
the
8, 9.
I haven't. I like though the connection, the crazy connection that Lucas made in the movies because the there are a lot of references that are used in 4, 5, 6 that are coming up in the one in 1, 2, 3. So I think how he managed to connect the stories is really impressive. So there is a there is a part I think I don't remember if it's I think it's 5 or 6 where they mentioning the War of the clones war, and it's actually what is happening then in the I think in the second was the War of the
Wallace,
Clone
yeah.
Wars, yeah. And I like how it connected. Did you try to, because you know there was a do you know there was a contest for everyone who was willing to write prequels or sequels for Star Wars? Do you know that?
No, no. Well,
So in
after
Disney,
the carry on, like with Disney not paying people, I wouldn't be fancying that.
Disney wrote they made an open book thing which they say everyone can send their prequels or sequels for Star Wars, and we will select the better one. I think it could be that Rogue One is one of those
Oh,
winners.
really? Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
I don't know exactly which of them. I might be mistaken, but one of them is one of those winners. So they made it open. I said whomever wants to write stories, just send them through, and we take the good ones. I forgot to take the most important thing.
Oh, you got a copy?
Yep.
Nice.
I like reading, so
Nice, nice. Oh,
um,
well, thanks very much for getting it.
you don't have to thank. I will. I plan to give it as a giveaway at the end of the episode.
Oh,
Let's
very good.
see.
That's a good idea.
Let's see how we try how we plan to do it. Um, but let's talk about Tervia. Is it Tervia? Have I said it right?
Trivia, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Um, how did it start?
I decided when I was writing short stories that I didn't just want to scattergun it. I wanted to actually build something. And I decided to create a world to sort of place all these stories in. And over time, I think probably done about maybe 10 or 12 different short stories and the novella. Um, they're all set in this one world. And I'm slowly sort of advancing the overall plot of what is going on in this world at this particular point in time. And that is basically the forces of evil, forces of good. They're all at
Hmm.
war on a sort of higher level that
Hmm.
most people don't see. And it's the balance is starting to shift and evil's starting to take hold. They've just found magic again. Um, and they're wielding it in quite a dangerous and effective way. And the good guys are dying, and they're not really growing in number, so it's looking pretty dire. And that sort of battle, which is sort of been hidden amongst the wider population for so long, is now beginning to spill out and affect more and more people as the bad guys are taking control. So that's the sort of overall story, and I like to zoom in and focus on these little stories going on, these little struggles between everyday people who are up against these nasty evil bastards. Um, so it's been quite fun, and you do see a bit of that in Together We Rise in the final chapter. You get your first taste essentially of who these bad guys are, what kind of power they've got, and what threat they pose to the wider world.
How do you manage to keep the story consistent across short stories, across novels, novellas? So you have the main story, and then you decide to do a zoom in one of the parts, but you keep in mind still the main story of the.
Yeah. So the way I look at this, I mean, I, the reason why I love fantasy so much is because of this sort of exploration of what is good and what is evil.
Mhm,
And what I try to do with this sort of fantasy world I've created is keep that as the central point.
mhm,
And this sort of battle, it's I see it as like a struggle between life and a struggle between nothingness, the opposite of life. So these little struggles take place in everything,
mhm,
every living thing, because everything lives. But at the same time, once it dies, it becomes nothing. And it's like two forces at work. And I'm always really interested in like the random things that people do. Some people might do something really randomly evil. Like in Liverpool, I don't know if you heard, a couple of weeks ago, guy just seems like a normal guy, just randomly drove into 80 people.
everyone thought it was an immigrant, but it wasn't, right? He wasn't.
No, no, he's from where I'm from. So why do people do these things? It's weird, and obviously there's probably like circumstances building up to it, but in split second moments, I'm always fascinated by the decisions that people make and the forces at work, and that's what I try and do in my fantasy world. I look at these little split second moments, these massive decisions that people make, and you can generally sort of get interesting character moments.
How do you balance the um, fantasy, the magics, and the politics in your writing?
I think the politics has filtered through a lot more uh, in the last few years, just because I'm getting so pissed off with everything in the world.
Like everyone from us, everyone of
Yeah,
us, yeah.
it's hard to really turn off from it now because it is getting so bad. I don't know how you feel about things, but I mean, has it affected your writing and what influences you?
It affects you in general, and even though I hate this popular opinion when they say I don't go to vote because anyhow, first my vote doesn't count, and second, um, it doesn't influence me. I have a good job, I have a good salary, but it doesn't influence me, which is absolutely wrong, because it influences our life, and I think that the um, for me it was shocking when I read that you finished the book in the day, or you sent the last version of the book in the day when the Big Orange ended up being president in the United States. Um, I don't really believe in coincidences.
Yeah, it's scary at the minute. I worry that there's just not enough on the other side fighting back. That's my big worry.
Are you afraid that we are gonna do the same mistakes?
Yeah, I think we've already made them.
Most
Like,
of them, you're right.
yeah, it is. It's annoying and frustrating for me. I don't know about yourself. To see us repeating it over and over and over again,
There is a
not
book which I read.
learning.
I read 8 years ago. I will never forget. I was in a holiday. and I was laying on the beach, and I still had no kids, so it was easy to read. And there was a book which was called "Why Don't We Learn from History?" And that book got me scary in 2017, and I think it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, it's strange the human fascination with just fighting. Like all throughout human history, it's just littered with conflict,
What
and
scares
it's
me, what
strange. Yeah.
scares me as well is that the capacity of humans to do evil.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not talking about the small cases, like you said, the guy from Liverpool. I'm talking about the big cases, the big killing, the big bombing.
Mm.
It's I don't understand the background of it, but yeah. So it's influencing all of us. Yeah. And for sure, the writing is getting as well influenced because whenever you are able to understand that everything what's happening at the moment is bad, and the social networks are dividing us more and more, this is really really hard.
Yeah. It is. It's and when you look at it like the way you just described, it is like we're fighting against ourselves
Yeah,
more than anything, and it's this sort of battle, this internal battle, that is like what I'm sort of most keen to write about now. Like why why do people side one way or the other? Why do people think these things? And it's I don't know. Sometimes you wonder whether someone reads it and enjoys it. Like Together We Rise, I mean, I don't write stories with with this one, I'm critical of a system like built on capitalism that just does not care about people whatsoever. So that's what I wanted to do in Together We Rise, but that doesn't mean I'm coming from a right wing or a left wing perspective, because the issues affect everybody. And one of the best things that came out of Together We Rise is someone wrote back after reading it, and they were a Trump supporter and they loved it. So
that's that's so nice.
so it's amazing. Like this is what books should be about. It shouldn't be about like
Absolutely,
being tribal. It should be about just laying out things and saying this is affecting all of us.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's even not important, Richie, if we are on the left or on the right, on the left side, then maybe that's what something that we should stop doing.
Yeah.
Because before it's like, before you talk to someone, you ask him if it's a Trump fan or not, or if it's I don't know, a Biden fan or Harris or whomever. um, and this is not something that represents us. I'm sorry, this is just something which is a temporary thing, and at the end, you know what, I just want to say, before when you said we are fighting against each other, there's gonna be no winner out of this.
Yeah. No one wins fighting, do they?
No one wins.
You've already lost if you're fighting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Going to Together We Rise, man, I have to tell you one thing that that I struggled with was the name of the characters. Uh,
And
I'm
there's a few as well. There's a few characters.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I went so much back and forward, so uh, because I couldn't remember the names, and I don't know if I thought that maybe it's because of being no native English speaker, but I think it's something. It makes it interesting though, because it's making you like read back and forth to understand who's whom and who's doing what, and
Mm.
made it really um really interesting. What made Tilia at the heart of the story for you?
Well, I actually created her as a character a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago when I first started writing. And she was one of the characters I loved most. And I ended up including her in a novel, and I ended up just ditching the novel. But I was like, I can't leave that. That's like the best story. And in the story, she leads a revolution. She becomes a vigilante and leads a revolution. And I was like, well, this is exactly what I want to write about now. It's perfect. So I, I was really thrilled to be able to bring that back. But I was like, because that was originally a novel, that story was It was 100,000 words, and that particular strand was probably about 40, 50,000 words, maybe more.
Hmm.
And I was like, I just don't want to be faffing about with like all that backstory. I just want to tell a nice, fast story, get to the actual revolution. So it starts on the morning of the revolution, and it's just told over 24-hour period. Um, and you find out all of the backstory that I cut out along the way, and you just get the essential information. Which I think people prefer that. I mean, some people like the in-depth world building and the info dumps and stuff, but I don't know. For this kind of story, it didn't feel needed.
Man, eight main characters.
Yeah, it's more like a short story collection
The
because they're all individuals, but they contribute to
different
the
agendas, different
larger story.
voices, everything. How did you how did you manage to balance them, or how did you plan to balance them?
What I tended to look at was each character because I was like looking, thinking about the perspectives first because I'm critiquing a system that affects everybody in
Hmm.
different ways, especially. And the purpose of each character is to look at how they've been impacted. So you've got the healer, who's basically repairing people after they get caught up in the cogs of the machine.
Hmm.
You've got the worker, who's fighting a losing battle every day to survive and live a decent life. You've got the drug dealer, who I thought was quite an important character because they're very symptomatic of this sort of corrupt and heartless system where it's all built on the profiting from the misfortunes of other people. So that character also offers like an economic perspective of like how capitalism works, which I thought was quite interesting. And
True.
then one of my favorite characters is probably the police officer, where the equivalent of the police officer who gets sent out to stop the rise in protest and basically is told to go out and kill people and do whatever you need to do. And he has to sort of decide whether to stick, fight for the police and the state or switch sides. Um, and then you've got other characters as well, like Till. We mentioned Till before. She's the sort of main strand that runs throughout the whole story. And the reason why she wants to do this revolution is basically um, through various circumstances, she ends up being married to like a very abusive and controlling man. He was also high up in the police and is part of this corruption that's just like riddled the city. And she realizes that after doing a bit of vigilanteism, it's not enough to just kill a few people and be done with it. Like it's just an ongoing problem, and the whole system needs to change. And that's why she starts planning a revolution. And she gets the help of an old general who's also sees the way things are going, and he sort of helps arm the revolutionaries.
I see the story existing and evolving in your head, and I think there's going to be a lot of follow up to this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've written a novel that carries on.
Okay.
Not long, about a few months later, basically. It's in a different part of the world. But some of the main characters, like my Della, she's in both.
Hmm.
And she carries on that story and the struggle with the Kyra, who are the main bad guys in the story.
Every of your main characters has a, or each POV characters has his own music. Um, this is I found this really interesting. I have to say that the partially read the book, or the first part of the book that I read it in an airplane, so I was kind of caught on the wrong foot because I couldn't listen to the music. The first part that I read, but then the second part I read at home, and I have to say it was an interesting experience. But it's really rare. I think it's. I don't know any other book that has done that, or any other author that has done that. How did the idea came up?
I actually think I could be the only one or maybe the first one to have done it.
I've never seen.
Um, yeah, I know, it's quite cool. I mean, I decided I wanted to publish this independently, so you're automatically up against a lot of competition because so many books get published, and I'm always looking for ways to like, how can I make this book stand out from everyone else, offer a better experience and a
Hmm.
unique experience. And personally, for me, I don't know about you, like Lord of the Rings, going back to Lord of the Rings, the soundtrack takes it to a whole other level, and it stirs emotions in you. And I don't know, I just love music so much, and if you can get it right,
That's a movie. That's a movie. It's not a book.
exactly, yeah. And I was like, well, why can't books have that same experience too?
True.
And it might not work, but I wanted to try it. And I think a lot of people have liked the music. I think people have found it a bit, they're not too sure when to listen to it. Like, do you start listening to it and then start reading? Because the songs aren't like the same length as the chapter. But the idea of the song is to mirror the emotional journey that the character goes through. So there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, at dramatic points where there's action scenes and stuff like that. So it gives you an idea of the emotional peaks and troughs of the chapter that comes.
Have you? I'm fully with you with the music first, because I'm a huge fan of music as well in general.
Mm,
I still have the theme song of the Hunger Games in my head, which I
nice.
think it's something which is hanging there a long time. I
Yeah,
still have talking about Game of Thrones, Jenny from the Old Stones, the song which is played, if I remember it correctly, before the Long Night episode,
yeah,
at the end of the preparation episode. This is how they finished the episode in the last season, and that was impressive. I have to say that was a moment in which that song fitted, like, I don't know, like it perfect, like
yeah,
perfect. And that's why I think if you find the right music, it gives you the right the right state in which you can better enjoy the process. It depends if it's movie reading. Have you Were you listening to those songs during writing, or were just ideas that came during writing?
no, when I was editing, especially, I was listening to them songs a lot because again, it was helping me like get in the character's head, put me in the scene, like especially in them dramatic moments and finding the sort of crescendos that the sort of readers can like attach to and feel what the character's feeling. Like I did listen to the music a lot. So I do think they're very much connected. But it's hard to do. It's not easy to get to sort of match up what the character's feeling at the sort of in that sort of same sequence of events, if you get what I mean.
Hmm.
But it's fun. It's fun and it's different. And if
Absolutely.
if some readers find it more enjoyable, then it's a whole new reading experience that no one's ever had before. So yeah, something to try.
I think it makes it unique for sure. Um, if the readers would take away one idea or emotion from Together with Rise, what would it be?
I suppose hope that um, it doesn't always have to be like this, and that we do have the power. Like as powerless as we feel, and as helpless as we feel, like we do have the ultimate power. It's just hard to mobilize and to encourage people.
Hope is such a hard one, man.
Yeah, it is. But it's all we cling to. It's the only reason we get off out of bed every morning.
True, true. That's correct. Was this the because you mentioned frustration before? Was this the most personal story that you've written?
Yeah, one of them. The most personal story is the first story that I've ever had published. That's called Forgotten. So that was about my grandmother. My grandmother had dementia, and I was looking after her. So that story is about her, but it's set in a fancy world, so it's a little bit different. So that'll always mean a lot to me because of the meaning behind the story. But Together We Rise, it's definitely something I'm passionate about. Like I absolutely loved writing it. It didn't feel like a chore to edit it because I was enjoying it, and I'm really keen to share the story. And I wanted to make it like like a book that I was happy to share with people. And that's why I went all out on the front cover and the artwork inside, and I made sure I was working with like the best artists around who could bring the vision to life. Um, so the front cover is done by a guy called Stuart Bash, and he's done covers for Stephen King. Um, and I think he gets the vibe really right. It's it's definitely a revolution vibe. And then
Absolutely.
the map is cool. Because the idea what I wanted the map is um it's like an official city map. And then there's a
Hmm.
second version at the back of the book where you can see the revolutionaries version, where they've scribbled notes, and it shows you the sort of path that they take to overthrow the government. So, and the guy who did that has done all the maps for Joe Abercrombie's first Lost trilogy. So that was really cool, like working with him, and Eve did half do an amazing job to bring the city to life in like a really interesting way.
Richie, why the self-publishing?
For this one, I didn't want to wait, and I wanted complete control of the project. Um, I do want to be published by more traditional avenues, but it takes so long. And I have stuff bubbling away, like working on that side of it. And then at the other time, while you're waiting, and you might as well do something yourself. So that's why I try and do a bit of a hybrid approach and just try and produce stuff like connect directly with readers. Like we're in an age now when we can do that. And I prefer to connect with readers, and that's why I've started Patreon, and now I do like regular. I'm doing a fantasy novel at the moment, that new chapter every week, which is quite fun because it's like a funny comedy um, about useless monster hunters. So
That
it's
sounds funny.
so it's like
Ghostbusters.
a yeah, pretty much, yeah. So like, I mean, I love all monsters and stuff like that, and this is like a fantasy world where there's basically too many monsters, and there's like a bounty system that's been established where crews of hunters go out, take on contracts, and these guys were all part of like one of the best crews around, and they decided that they didn't want to be, they wanted to do it themselves, but they're all a bit stupid.
That's so funny. That's so the plot is so funny. The plot is really funny.
Yeah, and I've just designed it so I want it to feel almost like a TV show. Like every week there's a new episode. This week they're going to fight this monster, or try and kill this monster. There's loads of twists and turns, loads of sharp and witty dialogue. So I'm hoping that people like it, and I'm having a lot of fun writing it, especially after something a bit more politically leaning, like Together We Rise.
Yeah. I think the fun part makes a book the small laugh that you have while reading it makes a book even funnier.
Yeah, it's hard to make people laugh in a book, I think.
Absolutely. I was talking to one of my guests, and he has a podcast where he's commenting or trying to discuss fantasy shows, TV series, and so on. But and I asked him the question, why books? Why not books? Because everyone is doing this with movies, but nobody's doing this in trial and of interpretation with books. And he mentioned really something really interesting for me. He said, yeah, the book usually don't leave you a lot of room for interpretation because it describes the situation really good.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think
true.
in yeah, but like you said in your case, if you do it, if you do it doing it perfectly, it's science. It's not fantasy. It doesn't leave any room for imagination, because I think um, the amazing part of reading is building your own characters in your head, building the way they look, the way they behave, the way they act. So I'm not a fan of, for example, Alain. I don't want to butcher his name, but I think it's Alain Prost, Research of the Lost Time, because that description is doesn't leave in. It's amazing, but it doesn't leave you any space to imagine something in your head. You can picture everything, but I want to have my own touch in the imagination. If
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who only I might just point out the most distinctive feature about that person, and then the rest is entirely up to you. It's just like I try and keep it natural. Like if you're walking down the street, someone's walking towards you. Naturally, what are the things that you notice first about them? You might notice the body shape. Are they tall? Are they small?
the
Wide,
hair,
large? Hair, yeah. And then as you get closer, you look at the face, and there's usually one feature that'll jump out at you. You might have a
absolutely,
scar, distinctive eyes, a beard, something like that. And that's all you need. Everything else is left to the reader.
absolutely. Richie, you mentioned a few times your podcast, and I think it's worth mentioning that you're not just a writer; you are a guide for other writers as well. Um, what made you start the podcast?
It started a while ago, back with a friend of mine called J.M. Williams. He's a very good writer. And we were working together a lot at the time on different writing projects, and we decided just to try a podcast. And we did it together for about a year or two, and then JM had to take a step back, and it's not something that I really paid much attention to. But when I was faced with this dilemma of do I stop or carry on, I was looking at the figures and I was like, oh, actually, people listen to this. So I thought I'll try and keep it going. Because I get a lot of satisfaction out of finding things, learning things, and sharing it with people. And that's the sort of ethos behind a lot of the sort of writing based things that I do. And in terms of like helping people with creative writing. So I have a website, I've got lots of guides and resources and tools on there for writers, and the podcast is like an extension of that. And what I like to do is just get guests on who are really knowledgeable or experts in the field. So I mentioned the FBI special agent before. Um, he was great for body language. So you were saying to yourself about books not always leaving things open to imagination. And one of the best things about TV and film is like observing characters, body language, behavior, how they respond to things. The best actors are really good at it.
Best
But
best actors. They have to be really good to be able to do
yeah,
that.
but in writing, it's not as used, I think. So we can definitely take a lot from that style of storytelling and inject it into our stories, written stories, because it people love it, and yeah, I'm all for it. So he was in one example. Speak to well-buy best-selling writers, and you learn so much because everyone does things in their own way. So yeah, I'll try and be as helpful as I can. That's the main aim.
During your podcast, did you had any pinch me moments? Like you said, you have the FBI special agent, you have best-selling authors. You had like a moment in which you said this is not real.
Yeah, I suppose the main one was when I interviewed a sci-fi and fantasy writer called Adrian Tchaikovsky. And he's someone that I'd read his books and I really loved them. I really admired the way he writes. And I met him at FantasyCon for the very first time. And it was during COVID, so everyone was wearing masks and it was really awkward. No one really knew how to behave, and it was so weird. But anyway, we sort of had a mumbled conversation, and I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to ask him if he'd like to be on the show. And he came back and he was just saying, "Yeah, I'd be delighted to be on the show." And he was really nice, and the episode is really interesting. Covered all kinds of different things, mainly about world building because he's such a brilliant world builder. And yeah, I was really, really nervous to ask him. I was scared to open his response. um, and like all like in preparation for the interview as well, I was really, really like nervous. But once you've done it, I mean, you've probably done it yourself. Like once you've interviewed a few people, you sort of find your flow. And like since then, like I've interviewed Jennifer Armentrout, she's arguably as big as like Sarah J. Maas at the moment in terms of
Mhm.
like how popular she is, and sh writers of writers, like we're all quite similar. um, and like you sort of think, oh, this person's had all this success, and you build them up in your head, but we're all just humans, and we all have fears, we all have hopes and dreams, and it's nice just to talk to people in a normal conversational way.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is, I have to say, it's always hard when you until you break the ice and you don't know if sometimes you're just fighting with the wall because you don't get the feedback to your questions, and this is really hard to cope with at the beginning. But when you realize that there is a discussion, there is a natural discussion that is flowing, it's so nice, and it's hard for the first 5 minutes, but then it's a natural flow of discussion. Nothing is coming in anymore, and it's so enjoyable. I do like the format. I do like meeting new people like this because I think it's you take the time. Like there's nothing that is hurrying you up.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's great to connect with someone like yourself on a weeknight in different parts of the world and get to know each other. It's
Thank
fantastic,
you.
and other people learning stuff about writing and books and stuff as well. It's cool.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's. I think it's a. As I mentioned before, hate, and I think the internet is used mainly for hate today. And unfortunately, there are less people like you and me, like coming from completely different worlds, coming from completely different work areas, and meeting together. And yeah, of course, we are both podcasters because now everyone can do this if they want to be honest. But coming from a different life spectrum and getting to have the normal conversation in which we exchange experiences, this is amazing. I have to say,
Yeah,
this is
it's
amazing.
probably becoming more important than ever that we've got this positive sort of culture to combat the sort of negative, toxic stuff that's flooding the internet. And like the internet, it's been used a lot for bad things, but at the same time, it's good and it connects us. And like doing things like this is what we need. We should be showing good examples to other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't like to brag about myself, but I think we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um. How do you handle the creative burnout? I asked Steve Barnes as well because he is also a musician and also doing his podcast. You have as well your writing. You have your podcast. How do you handle the? How do you manage to do them and still to make fun to do them?
Yeah, I think there did come a time when, like, for the podcast, for example, I was doing too much of and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So for that, I didn't cancel it. I just scaled it back. I devoted more time to the things that I was getting more enjoyment out of. Because my
Hmm.
interests, I mean, there's a lot of things that I like to do around writing, and don't sort of tie myself down to a project. So, like for example, at the moment, I'm enjoying writing this web series, and I'm keeping it a bit loose and open because if I commit to a series, like I see some writers doing web series and they're on like chapter 274. Like I don't want to be doing that, many, but it might get to that level, so I
Sounds
don't
like
want to
a
don't want to
sounds like
say
a soap
no.
like a soap opera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't want to get to that level. You know what I mean? But I don't want to say it might get to that level. It might not. So I just try and see where the creative interests take me, and I kind of know when I'm satisfied, or if I feel like something's a chore, basically, it's a good sign I'm not enjoying it, and I need to take a step back away from it. And luckily I don't get much burnout. Um, I do times where you come home from work and you're meant to be doing something and you just don't feel like doing it, and there's no point sometimes. But then at other times it's worth powering through because then you get to the good juicy flow. It just depends on how much motivation and inspiration you've got on the day, how much creative energy. Because it's weird, like writing. I mean, you might know yourself, like it's using a different part of your brain, and sometimes it feels like you've got a stamina bar, and the more you go at it, the stamina bar gets depleted, and there comes a point where you just, like you say, you just burns out.
That's something we are all afraid of, or we should all be afraid of. That the stamina bar is. I know it from FIFA. I played a lot of FIFA, and the stamina bar was really important.
That goes sprint.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think like you said, as long as it makes fun, it's important. But do you do you believe in the muse?
Um, I do. I probably people define it probably in different ways, but I do.
Absolutely.
I do have like a sort of running monologue, just constantly chatting away. And I think someone it was in the news recently, wasn't it? Like some people just don't have this ongoing sort of voice, just commentating on everything. Um, but I'm one of them people who does, and thoughts and story ideas pop in and pop out, and um, just try and make notes of everything. um, there's always something that you forget, and you end up kicking yourself that you've forgotten it. The worst thing though is writing it down and losing or forgetting where you wrote it. That's more frustrating.
Did you happen to wake up in the night and have an idea and say, I will for sure remember it until in the morning and you forgot it?
Yeah, that no chance of remembering if that happens. Honestly.
That was just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
What's the most rewarding part of mentoring other writers, Richie?
For mentoring other writers, it's just seeing them grow. Like I've been actually there's one person I do mentor, and we've just been editing her novel together, probably for about 6 months. Um, and it probably we're around about chapter 15 now. Chapter 4, the last chapter anyway that she did, it was really, really good. Didn't really have to make any notes or anything like that. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, she's actually done it. She's listened to all the feedback, she's applied it, she's thought about it, and she's writing good stuff now. And I was like, if you compare that to how she started, yeah, it's light and day. And I mean, I do enjoy that sort of side. In my day job, I we do have a content team, and I started out as an editor, and it was that same kind of thing. Is like you bring all these sort of raw writers in, and you just help refine the sort of style and the sort of understanding of grammar and sentence structure and stuff like that. And it's really satisfying to see people grow and improve. I don't know if you've ever seen that in any of your jobs, but you might find that equally rewarding.
It's even more rewarding than the things that you see in your working in your work, because you realize someone was listening to your advice, and not only that, but you realize also that your advice was actually a good one. Like this is because we all like to talk a lot, and we all like to share our opinion about stuff, but then you realize it was a good one. I think that's a nice moment. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You seem to wear many hats. So you're a podcaster, you're a writer, you're a teacher. I would say you are an editor, you are a marketer, you are a musician, and you are also a basketball fan.
Yeah, I do like basketball. Yeah. Don't get much time for basketball anymore, though. Funny enough, I've had
Why?
all that, I've had all them other things. Yeah. Are you a
we are.
basketball fan?
Yeah, I'm a basketball fan. I was a hard watcher of NBA. They are the playoffs now, but I kind of lost track, to be honest, because of the same
Same.
reason like you are saying. I'm
Yeah.
quite sad about that. I
Who's
still
your
think
team?
I. Sorry?
Who's your team?
Ah, Lakers. I
Lakers.
start watching basketball when Kobe and Shaq were there,
Oh, nice.
and not really started, but that was the moment in which I chose my favorite team. But I love Kobe, and I liked Shaq as well, and I like the combination of both was impressive at
Yeah,
Lakers.
nice, very nice.
And I think now the fact that LeBron played with his son in the same game, it's a piece of history that I think not many people got to live it alive.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that you would not be able to see in football, I think.
No.
How we end up talking about sports. Um, um, what would you say would be the dominant hat?
I'd say writing is my biggest passion, and I wouldn't be doing any of the other things if it wasn't for writing. Because you get into marketing to promote your books, you get into podcasting again because it's a bit of sharing things, bit of promotion, connecting with people. So I think a lot of it all stems from writing. So that has to be the main one for sure.
Makes sense. Makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah.
What does nature play in your writing life? Um, I heard you often walk the Tolkien trail. Does that
Yeah, I do like the
ever
talking
bring new
trail.
ideas?
As you can tell, I'm not really bothered about nature.
But that's house nature. I don't call that necessary nature. That's domestic nature.
Oh, that's bringing nature indoors. I
Absolutely.
absolutely, I love anything that lives basically. So, I love being out in the countryside. Um, and I'm very much inspired by the sort of countryside that's around me. So I live Liverpool's quite lucky. It's on a coast. It's quite close to like the Lake District, which is an amazing place. Full of lakes, as the name suggests, and lots of big hills, amazing views, just yeah, stunning place. And then Wales as well, very similar. Few less lakes, but just an amazing sort of wild landscapes, and that's what I love. And I love the idea of just getting out there and exploring and being free. And that's part of the big draw when it comes to fantasy adventures, I think, is the sort of stepping out of the comfort zone of your front door and seeing what the world has to offer.
Correct. And this is how you get new ideas, actually, right?
Yeah, yeah. Good world building. It's inspiration.
Correct. How do your writing days actually look like now?
If I get a full day to write to myself, I usually work in sessions. So I'll wake up and I'll get straight stuck in, and I might work till like lunchtime. Then I'll have like a break for maybe an hour or two, then do another session till like tea time, and then have another little break. And then I'll usually do an evening session, 7 till maybe midnight, or just whenever I get tired. Um, so yeah, usually about if I've got a full day to myself, I'll probably work maybe 10 or 12 hours, just split up over the course of the day. Um, I don't know, I just like I say, it's the stamina bar. Once the stamina bar gets low, you
But
need to just have a little break, top up, go back at
I,
it again.
I think the interesting things are the midnight session. Do you still do midnight sessions? So like really
Yeah.
midnight?
There'll be some times when I'll be like 12:30. I'd be like, I need to go to bed now, but I feel like I can write. I can get a few words out. I like working at that time of night because there's no one around, nothing to distract you, dead quiet. So I'm very much a night owl. Plus the NBA's on that time, so
You said you're not watching it. Uh, NBA is amazing. Um, if you could do a collaboration with a musician or a band to turn one of your books into an album, who would it be?
Oh, this is a good one. Good question. So I did start writing a novel, and I do want to finish this novel. And I call it a Scouse crime fantasy. So it's basically a crime story set in Liverpool, with like strong cultish flavors. So a bit of an occult vibe, a bit magical realism, a little bit fantasy as well. It's just a bit weird, but it's all set in Liverpool. Um, and there's a band that I really love called Hermanos Gutierrez, and they play what I would probably describe as desert rock, desert blues, maybe. It's just two electric guitars. So if you've ever heard like the good, the bad, the ugly, that kind of music, a bit more rockier, but I think that sort of Western twang to a sort of crime fantasy and like a sort of gritty city would be quite cool.
I think I know the band. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I know the band.
Oh
I have
yeah,
to check it out after after we record this.
yeah, very cool band.
You've built a life around storytelling, Richie. But what do you think the stories, and especially the fantasy stories, give us what the real world cannot give us?
I think sometimes it's harder to always sort of take things in when we're sort of thrown so when so much is thrown at us, and sometimes fantasy is a good barrier to sort of take a step away from it and reframe things, um, in different ways that people can find sometimes maybe more relatable and they can engage with more. And I think that's a really powerful storytelling device essentially because we do see an awful lot. Like Gaza, for example, is pretty horrendous. What's going on there? And like as writers, there's not much you can really do. And I ended up writing a story, a short story about it, and reframed it so it was almost like a fantasy story. But the fantasy element came about because of a character's trauma, bit like Life of Pi. Life of Pi was clever to do that.
Uh-huh.
And I find that people can engage things, or engage with things more sometimes when when they feel like it's a story and it's not real life, even though it very much is. um,
The inspiration is there, but you put a pinch of fantasy there, and everyone is thinking it's not real life anymore.
Mm. yeah,
Um,
it's a hard one though.
I I really enjoyed this conversation. I loved it.
So yeah,
Before we wrap it up, I have my I call it a rapid fire round, but it's never rapid fire because nobody's giving me the rapid fire answer. So I just have some
I'll try and be
questions.
fast for you.
Thank you. I I have some questions that I prepare always for every guest, or modeled on every guest that I have.
Sure.
Pen, paper, or laptop?
Pen and paper. I had to stop
Really?
because it took too long. Don't have that much time, but I love pen and paper.
It's interesting. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. I think
How
it
about
also
you? Are you prefer?
it's hard because the problem is that I find it more comfortable on laptop, but you have more time catchers on the laptop.
Yeah, distracting.
And I
Yeah.
realized that my handwriting went to shit because I'm not able to really good handwrite anymore. I'm so sad about this.
Yeah. Do you know what I have actually gotten used to is writing on my mobile phone. So
Your
I
hand?
get like
Okay.
I've got like a Google Doc, and I
Hmm.
just have Google Docs on my phone, so I can start a story on my computer. And then if I'm in the park and I'm sitting down on the park bench, like today at lunch, for example, on my lunch break at work, I had 20 minutes, so I just wrote 300 words on my phone. And
Okay.
I actually find it quite easy to get in the flow when it's on my phone. Don't know why, but
That's interesting.
yeah, fewer distractions because once you're on your phone, you're on your phone. There's nothing else to distract you.
Correct, correct. That's a good one. The main distractor, you cannot pick up the phone because you already have it in hand.
Yeah, yeah. So just put it on silent. Just type away.
Um, Favorite fantasy trope, love it or hate it?
I love a love-hate relationship with the mentor figure, like Gandalf, for example. They're some of my favorite characters, but as someone who didn't have a sort of present father, I do feel like there's a lot of people who have to bring themselves up on their own without any figures,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is not done enough. There's always just some convenient mentor who just solves the problem, points them in the
Mm-hmm.
right direction. Whereas for a lot of people in the world, you've got to do it yourself. So I have a love-hate relationship with it.
That's a really good one. I haven't thought about that, but you are right. I think Star Wars is the same. Everywhere there's a mentor, which is doing this father figure, but in the real life, is never like this. You
Yeah,
have
it's a
to come.
convenient plot point. That's what a mentor figure is. Do
Absolutely. Your favorite antagonist, but not your own.
you ever remember Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII?
No.
He's quite specific and niche, but again, there was he had an amazing theme tune. It's Final Fantasy, they were really great for making good music, fantasy music, and still listen to it now. But Sephiroth, he's probably one of the most iconic characters. He had this really long sword called, I can't remember what it was called, like a katana, but it was bigger. He had this long blue hair, and he was just a really ominous, dark figure. And I just, I played that when I was younger. Probably wasn't really aware of the nuances of his antagonism.
Hmm.
But I just remember him being a really formidable and cool, cool in his own way. You know what I mean? The bad guy's got to be a little bit cool.
Always the bad guy is cool. Always. At
Yeah.
the beginning, at least. Um, Most underrated fantasy author.
I'm gonna say a guy called Daniel Polanski. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I interviewed him on my podcast, and I hadn't read any of his books before then. But he's from Baltimore, and he heavily influenced by The Wire, like myself. Baltimore is also a very similar place to Liverpool, like a dying port city. And when I read his series, Lowtown, um, it's like 3 books, set in like a gritty city where there's like low town, the high town, and there's a lot of like corruption and sort of scheming and stuff like that. I just loved it, and it was like this is like working. It feels like working class fantasy, if I can say that. Like it's written by a working
Working
class
class
person.
fantasy.
It's
That's
about
such an
working class
interesting.
people, and it's just. I mean, one of the biggest gripes I've got, like I'm a very working class person, like I'm brought up in pretty poor area and stuff like that. And when I go to fantasy conventions and meet fantasy authors and stuff like that, there's no one really like from me, from my background. I'm very aware of it sometimes because people almost make you feel aware of it. Um, so I always try and encourage the underdog perspective, show the gritty reality of the everyday man. And I, I really admire people who have done this. Van Gogh, he painted pictures about peasants working in fields. No one wanted it. He didn't sell a painting in his life, but he was true to what he was passionate about. And
Yeah, correct.
look at us now. We revere him.
He doesn't know
And
about it, but
exactly, it's crazy. And another one is Kafka, Franz Kafka. So
Mhm.
he is working class Czech. Um, spent his whole life writing. No one really giving a crap, and now we revere him as this amazing sort of forward-thinking writer. So there's a lot of working class people who don't get the attention and the credit they deserve for the simple fact that they're working class. But like that doesn't mean that the stories are any less important and they should be told. So because they speak to the reality of a lot of people, Um, and that's a big challenge that writing's going through at the moment because no one's earning enough to make a living. So that means the only people who can really afford to do it are the rich people.
I think that's the
Uh,
point. It was always seen as an aristocracy job, not because of the money that you make for it, but the money that you need to live because you don't make any money out of it, or you don't make enough money to live from it. And that's why I think it was always the forbidden fruit for everyone coming from the working class. I had someone else I had another author a few last week or 2 weeks ago. I interviewed her, Jay Bull, who's doing fantasy, and she's also coming from a working class environment from Detroit, and
nice.
she built a fantasy world around the areas that she was coming from. It's really an interesting
Oh yeah,
it's interesting perspective, and she also build a fantasy world, and she already published her second book from that fantasy world.
that's
Really
really cool.
interesting. I think there are more and more coming because there are more and more people having the courage to take this leap towards self-publishing, towards doing whatever you love and not striving for a job that you don't necessarily like.
Yeah, and it's become a lot more accessible now with technology,
Correct.
and it's just a matter of knowing how to do it. And that's one of the things I like doing is showing people, giving people the courage and the confidence to do it, and then showing them how. And
Correct.
then we get more stories from working class people out there. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, what's always on your writing playlist?
Oh, it has to be. I mentioned Final Fantasy. Always Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings. If I'm not listening to more classical stuff, I like a lot of psychedelic rock.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly like instrumental psychedelic, which is a bit more progressive. But I've started getting a lot into almost like dance music. This one particular guy called Ron Trent, and he does like um almost like mixes of like dance music, but then like jazz, funk, bit of rock, bit of psych, and I really love that because it's got that sort of steady, repetitive beat that can help you stay concentrated and engaged in something. But then it's got like the cool, quirky sounds as well that I like.
If Together We'll Rise would be a Netflix series, who would play Delia?
That's a really good question. Uh, oh, I don't know. Maybe someone like just off the this is off the top of my head. Someone like Natalie Portman or something like that, but she's probably a little bit too old for Till now. Uh,
Correct.
so I don't know. Someone like Natalie Portman, just 20 years younger.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Time machine.
Yeah.
Would you rather live in a fantasy you wrote or in one that you read?
Oh, I don't think I'd like to live in my world. It's a bit nasty.
Correct.
I don't know. Most fantasy worlds, like, there's always something bad happening. So there's just like you wouldn't want to live in Game of Thrones. For example,
They were
Westeros.
dying. They were dying young, and they were filthy. All of them.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I've read a fantasy book and thought, yeah, I'd really like to be here. But what about you? Have you come across any that you like?
I think we are not far away from Hunger Games.
Yeah, yeah, it's not far, yeah.
I find it interesting. I come from a communist country, from a former communist country, Romania, and it was still again not far away from Hunger Games. Like you had these districts, you had that. Of course, we were not killing each other yet, but most probably this would have happened. But it's still a resemblance that comes pretty often in my mind.
Yeah, that's tough.
What what book changed your life?
I think that probably the main one was the third Game of Thrones book. I can't remember what's called, A Feast for Crows, maybe. Um, and it's the only book that's ever really like hooked me so much that I didn't notice the passage of time. So there was one night where I couldn't sleep I started reading this book about 1 a.m. Um, and I was up to the part just before the red wedding. And the next time I checked the time, it was 7 a.m. And I'm like, whoa, this has never ever happened. Like, I've just sat there for 6 hours, just read, and didn't even realize how much time I was reading, how much time was passing by. And I sat there and I was like, this is like magic. This is something special that's like that George R. R. Martin's done. And I think at that point, and I realized that, like, this is what I really want to do myself. I want to create things that people are going to enjoy this much. And that's where I probably decided that I wanted to be a writer.
That's impressive. I haven't read Game of Thrones. I have to be honest, and I somehow wanted to before I watched the series. I watched the series really late, but life happened and you didn't get the time. But now you made me really curious because I think they are going on completely different plot in comparison with the movie, and that's why.
As it goes on, it's that the TV show starts to leave things out that are arguably the best parts of the story. uh,
They didn't fit in the narrative.
yeah, it's a shame.
Um, Richie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very
I
much.
I appreciate the time that you took. I think that these kind of stories have to be told because everyone should get the courage to do what they like and not wait for the perfect moment because there is never a perfect moment.
No, you're waiting a long time.
Exactly, and life moves on. Um, where should our listeners read your work, listen to your podcast, or join your community?
Best place to go is Patreon now. I've put all of my writing and stories onto Patreon. So just literally search Richie Billing Patreon. There's not many people called Richie Billing. So
I will
you
link.
could,
I will link it anyhow.
oh, amazing. Yeah. And richiebilling.com. I mean, if you just Google Richie Billing, there's only one of me, I think. So you should find everything quite
He's
easily.
the son of a famous football player.
There you go.
Richie, final question. What's the next mountain you're looking to climb creatively?
The next mountain. I would like um to finish this novel, but I've not gone back to it yet. I'm just doing everything else but editing this novel. And I haven't decided what to do with it. There's various problems with it, and it's creatively it feels like a mountain, and I do need to climb it eventually. So yeah, that's on the to-do list.
If the commitment is there, I think it will happen. You just have to find for the right muse to come.
Yeah, I absolutely hate editing novels at the moment because they just take too long. So when I feel like I've got more energy to do that, then I'll probably do it. But at the moment, it's all shorter projects, sort of ongoing stuff, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I'm gonna carry on.
Thank you again, and I hope next time you have something to share, you just drop me an email, and we can. I would love to do this again sometimes.
Me too. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It was a pleasure for me as well. Thanks a lot, Richie. See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.